Every single winter, it happens like clockwork. A thick, toxic haze blankets North India, and millions of people start choking. It's this predictable annual crisis that turns something as simple as breathing into a dangerous gamble. So, what's really causing this yearly air apocalypse? Let's dig into the data and find out. Now, that might sound like an exaggeration, but it's not. That is a direct quote from our source material, and it's a feeling shared by so many residents who feel like they're trapped in a city where the air itself is toxic. The comparison is terrifying, but for a lot of people living through it, it feels spot on. And get this number, 722, wasn't measured on some polluted, traffic jammed street. No, this was the AQI level recorded inside a home, with an air purifier already running. Just so you know, an AQI of 50 is considered good. This is more than 14 times that safe limit. This isn't just an outdoor problem anymore. It's an everywhere problem. So let's be really clear about what we're dealing with here. This annual event isn't just some inconvenience that makes your eyes sting. It is a full-blown public health emergency. It causes huge economic damage, and as we're about to see, it has a staggering human cost. Just look at the raw numbers. According to The Lancet, a top medical journal, air pollution was connected to 1.7 million deaths in India in 2022 alone. In Delhi, it's the cause of 15% of all deaths. And maybe the most shocking stat of all, just living in the national capital region can cut your life short by an entire decade. This is, without a doubt, a silent killer on a massive scale. And every year, like clockwork, the blame game starts. You see politicians pointing fingers at other states, people blaming festivals, but the smog just stays. So let's cut through all that noise and look at what the data actually tells us about who or what the real culprits are. First up, the usual suspect, the festival of Diwali. We all see the headlines every year. We see the smoke from the firecrackers, but is that really the whole story? Not even close. You know, firecrackers absolutely cause a huge, dangerous spike in pollution. No question about it. But its worst effects are pretty short-lived. The data shows that the crazy AQI levels from Diwali usually settle back down within just 2 or 3 days. The pollution crisis, though, lasts for months. So yeah, Diwali is a factor, but it is not the root cause. Okay, so what about the next big one? The farm fires, stubble burning in the neighboring states. This is the one that's constantly blamed as the #1 reason for Delhi's toxic air. But the data tells a much more complicated story. Stubble burning is a real problem. And on its worst days, it can be a big contributor. But on average, over the whole season, it only accounts for about 8 to 10% of the pollution. The much bigger and more consistent problem, it's the pollution coming from all the surrounding industrial and urban districts, which make up a whopping 35% of Delhi's external pollution. All right, so let's look closer to home. What about the millions of cars, bikes, and trucks that are actually on Delhi's roads every day? Surely that's the main problem, right? And this is where it gets interesting. Yes, if you only look at the pollution that's created inside Delhi, vehicles are the #1 bad guy, responsible for 51%. But you have to remember, all these local sources combined are only about 1/3 of the total problem. So what this really shows us is that there's no single villain in this story. It's a toxic mix of a whole bunch of different things. So if it's not just one thing, then what is it? Well, the truth is, North India's unique geography and its specific weather patterns combine with all these sources of pollution to create a perfect, inescapable trap. The key thing you need to understand here is a weather phenomenon called temperature inversion. Normally, the air near the ground is warmer, so pollution rises up and blows away. But in the winter, the ground gets cold really fast, and you end up with a layer of cool, heavy air stuck near the ground, with a layer of warmer air on top of it, like a lid. Nothing can get out. And this inversion effect creates this massive trap for the entire region. Here's how it works. After the monsoon, the winds shift and start blowing from the northwest, carrying all that pollution with them. Then the winter temperature inversion acts like a lid, trapping all that dirty air close to the ground. This toxic layer gets sandwiched, and it can't go anywhere because it's literally blocked on both sides by the Himalayan and Aravalli mountain ranges. The entire region basically becomes a geographic gas chamber. So the science is crystal clear. The sources are known, and that leads to the most frustrating question of all. If we know all this, why on earth does this disaster happen again and again and again with no real solution in sight? Well, the answer seems to be a system that's just in complete denial.
Take a look at this. It's wild. On the very same day, the official government monitors might say the AQI is, 200 or 300, which is very poor, but not technically an emergency. But at the same time, regular people using their own devices are getting readings of 700, even 800 plus. That's not poor, that's straight up hazardous.
So you have to ask yourself, how can there be such a huge gap between the official numbers and the air that people are actually breathing? Well, the source material alleges that this isn't some simple mistake. According to reports, several tactics are allegedly used to keep those official numbers looking better than they are. Things like sprinkling water around monitoring stations to temporarily wash the air, or putting the monitors in unusually green places like parks. On top of that, it's reported that more than half the official stations are broken and don't even work properly. And the alleged reason for all this? To keep the numbers just low enough to avoid declaring an emergency, which would mean having to shut down things like construction and industry. And listen, this isn't a money problem. A government press release itself showed that 428 crore rupees, that's about $50 million, was given to 6 cities in the region specifically for pollution control. But that same press release admits the money wasn't used properly. This points to a massive failure of execution and political will, not a lack of cash. Now, it is so easy to feel hopeless listening to all of this, but it is so important to remember, if this is a man-made problem, then the solution has to be man-made too. And we actually have really clear examples of how this can be fixed. If you want to see what's possible, just look at Beijing. A decade ago, their air was just as bad as Delhi's, maybe even worse. Delhi's approach has been these temporary, reactive bans and a whole lot of political finger-pointing. Beijing, on the other hand, made a choice. They invested over $100 billion, made incredibly tough decisions to move and shut down polluting industries, and planted an unbelievable 35 billion trees. And today, their air is dramatically cleaner. It is proof that real change is possible. So while we all wait for that big, systemic change, what can you do right now to protect yourself? Well, experts give some pretty clear advice. First, avoid heavy exercise outdoors. If you absolutely have to go out, wear a certified N95 mask. Inside, use a good quality HEPA filter air purifier. And most importantly, listen to your body. If you feel any chest tightness or you're short of breath, see a doctor right away. And that brings us to the final, unavoidable question. From the science of the problem to the failures in funding to the successful examples set by other cities, the path to clean air isn't a mystery. The causes are known and the solutions are out there. The only real question left is, where is the will to actually do it?